who I remember, just an amazing student, and I've just been so amazed to see her career develop and what she's been able to do for world healthcare. So I'm not going to say a lot about her story. Part of her presentation is the path that she's taken, but I just wanted to just say how excited I am that she was able to come here and join us and tell the story of the product that she's developed and the company that she's developed with her sister, and then just how proud I am of her and what she's done. So, Crystal, if you could come up and we'll welcome you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for inviting me here. I'm obviously very honored, also surprised, but anyways, I've been invited here to talk about what I've been up to these past 15 years since I graduated from Pacific. And it's just going to be a little bit of storytelling. Alright, there we go. So, I'm Crystal. I created a dental practice in San Mateo called Young Dental Group, and also an oral care products company, Cocofloss. Have any of you guys heard of it? And I'm also a mom of two. So I'm going to start out with, my formative years and how I fell into dentistry, and a little bit about my time at Pacific, and about building my businesses, and then bring you up to speed to today. So my story starts here with my parents. So my parents are both from the Philippines. My mom did dental school in the Philippines. She was a dentist. And my dad, he went to college in the United States, and then he went into finance. And they moved to New York, had me, and we lived there until I was about 2. And we moved to California, and at that time, that's when my mom opened her dental practice, and then my dad left finance and started, basically became a serial entrepreneur. So the spoiler alert here is that the apples don't fall far from the tree, and their mashups are me and my sister Kat. So my sister Kat, we are best friends, and from the time she was born, my parents told me that I was responsible for her. And I loved having that job. See, we didn't have a lot of toys when we were kids, and we didn't have any pets, so Kat was it. And I loved having that responsibility. So I realized that, I think that without realizing it, my parents instilled this joy of caring for others at a very early age. And when we were little, we didn't need a lot to keep us entertained. We would just play make-believe games. But while it was probably more normal to play make-believe like fairies or princesses or house, we would play business, and Kat would be the CEO, and I would be her assistant, and I'd help her on her various enterprises. And I would just, we would just pretend we had busy schedules and boss each other around, tell each other what to do, and write checks to each other and stamp money. So we always had a lot of fun together, and we still do, and we're still best friends. I also grew up, where did my other slide go? Oh no. Okay. I also grew up a competitive pianist, and I also was known in the 6th grade as being the fastest typer. And so growing up with my mom being a dentist, all of her friends were dentists. And so they would tell me, Crystal, with your fast fingers, you should consider dentistry. And I was, of course, too little to really take that seriously. But it was planted in the seed in my head at a very early age. My first job growing up was working in my mom's dental practice as basically an administrative assistant. She only had one staff member in her office. Her name was Alma. So if Alma ever got sick or had jury duty or went on vacation, I was her unpaid substitute. So I would basically just answer the phone, or I would schedule patient appointments with with a typewriter. And I actually really enjoyed it. My mom speaks 5 languages, and she sees patients of all ages. So it was a really fun place to hang out. And I just really loved the vibes of the practice. There was all these families, a lot of hustle and bustle. And I just, I really loved how, I watched how much my mom cared for her patients, and she really loved seeing them grow up. So that was always a good thing for me, really inspiring for me. And my mom said, you should consider dentistry. But I wasn't really ready to just take her word for it. So I went into college, pretty open-minded still, but I knew I had an inclination towards the health sciences because my mom was a dentist. I also had doctors in my family, but I still wasn't totally sure. I wasn't ready to just commit. I majored in chemistry, which was a big surprise because I hated chemistry in high school. Any other chem majors here? Okay, Dr. Whitson? So cool. Okay, so not that many chem majors. It's honestly, orgo was so hard. I wanted to do organic chemistry. I wanted to make the right decision. But who knew that analytical chemistry or inorganic chemistry would be so much fun? Anyways, as a chem major, I tried to stay open-minded still, but it wasn't until I met these other women in my school who had they were all determined to be dentists, and they knew that already, and we went down together to local elementary schools to teach kids how to brush their teeth. And I had so much fun teaching these little kids about home care that through this experience, that experience alone made me decide all right, I'm gonna go ahead and declare myself pre-dental. So by the time I was a senior, I was officially pre-dental, but I was relatively late in the application process, considering the rolling admissions. And so my ADSAS application went in December, and by then, as you guys all know, the class was already filled. And so I was going to I was going to interview for an alternate position if I was going to interview at all. And everything that the Student Doctor Network, everything I read on the Student Doctor Network told me that I wasn't going to get in. So it didn't really feel like this was going to happen. So I graduated college without knowing what my next step would be. I had a degree in chemistry, but I was 22 years old, and everything I knew at that point in my life was just how to be a student. So I went home from college feeling pretty lost. All of my friends from college already had jobs lined up before they even graduated from school. So I applied for random jobs. I applied, and I actually got some job offers. I almost worked at an academic research lab, a consulting company, and ultimately I accepted a job offer at a startup company in San Mateo. And the day I accepted my offer, they took me out to lunch. I had lunch with my coworkers, and then I went to the mall and I went and bought some work clothes. And then I got home from the mall, feeling pretty good about it. And then I got a phone call from UOP admissions, and a space had opened up in the class of 2008. And they said, if you'd like to join us, school starts next week. Whoa, okay. So I got to go to Pacific. So how many of y'all have seen this building? I haven't even been in the building. Okay, well, unfortunately, not so unfortunately, but the building doesn't exist anymore. But it was a big culture shock for me because all of a sudden I found myself here in Pacific Heights with ladies in heels and men in ties. And I knew that my classmates, like all of you guys, were the elite, the best of the best. And by the way, my school is a women's college, so we would all, how you guys are all super casual right now, that's how we were every day at Wellesley. So again, a big culture shock. As jarring as it was for you guys to see Dr. Nadarshani in sweats last night, that's how jarring it was for me to go to Pacific Heights and go to UOP and have everyone in suits. So, first year, some of my most humbling experiences happened for me that first year of dental school, like that first day pre-clin where we had to make those perfect alginate impressions of our perfectly zero-stoic typodont. Or that first quarter finals week when there were 10 finals in 1 week. Like, how is that even possible? Or that first denture setup. What I felt like I spent so much time on it, and I scalped the gingiva so beautifully and polished it to perfection with an entire pantyhose, and only to be told that the entire thing needed to be redone and reset. And tell me if they still do this now. As a way to keep us awake in class, some of the professors, especially in like the first lecture of the day, they would randomly pick a student number, and then they would put your face on the screen and ask you a question. Do they do that now? They don't do that now? Okay, and our lecture halls were kind of like this. They were like long and skinny. Is it like that now? It's not. Okay, well, so imagine a long and skinny lecture hall with 2 projectors, and they put your face like this, and they ask you a question to make sure you're awake. And the day that this happened to me, I wasn't awake. I had slept through my alarm. And my friend texted me, she's like, where are you? Like, they're asking you a question, and I don't see you. I'm like, God, I'm in bed. So, none of it that first year came easy or natural to me. Honestly, I wasn't at the top of the class. Memorization was never my strong suit, so I struggled in anatomy and biochem. And honestly, we were all pretty sleep deprived. We were spending late nights in the clinic, in the sim lab, practicing our hand skills. So late nights, early mornings, we weren't sleeping enough, so that didn't help. And obviously, we were all sleep deprived. So, it was definitely rough. So I commend all of you guys for getting through all of that. Anyways, the white coat ceremony and transition to clinic is what changed everything for me, because I really, really love seeing patients. And I will never forget my first patient. I know his name by heart. Obviously, I'm not going to share it here. And I'll never forget the first filling I did. I still remember what my preparation looked like, and how perfect I made it, and how my patient thanked me for making it a completely painless procedure. And he thanked all the faculty too for making it like a great experience. And at Pacific, I also discovered my passion for community dentistry. I was president of SCOPE, and so I helped coordinate over 1,000 hours of dental student community service. And I also, as president, I kind of got to pick the really cool experiences and volunteering in really cool places. Of course, we volunteer in parking lots and fairgrounds. But I also got to volunteer in farmlands and mobile clinics and even the Special Olympics. And I really loved that immediate reward feeling of being able to help people and to really know that you're doing good. And of course, Asilomar, we were all here and I sat where we were sitting. My friend worked here, she reminded me that we also had a karaoke night. And tonight it sounds like we also have the bonfire, so I hope you guys all enjoy it. It all just happened so fast. I know you guys are all going through it, and every day feels like it's, can feel hard, but it's all kind of a blur now. So anyways, I took my live patient boards, which was the most stressful week of my life, and then I graduated. And all of a sudden, you're a doctor. And you feel so free. It's like, wow, there's no more test cases, no more pop quizzes or final exams, and no more clinical requirements, and you're totally free. But that first student loan payment is due before you even get your license, so watch out for that. And so that feeling of freedom doesn't last very long. So you start to very, very eagerly, you want to know, what am I going to do next? And of course, it is, you start looking for your first job. So I finally got my license, and then I got my first job at this practice here in San Francisco. It was in the Sunset District with a UCSF doctor. And it was honestly a very unglamorous associateship. I was his 16th associate, and they would book me 16 week cares in a day. And for context, I would never book more than 8 week cares in a day for any of my hygienists now, because I mean, they probably wouldn't even show up. There's no way they would do that. And maybe because I was like a green and petite 25-year-old, if there wasn't a day where I would go to work and the patients would like look me up and down and be like, when's the doctor coming in? I'm like, oh yeah, that was me. You're all set here. But what I did learn from this is that it wasn't about, it doesn't have to be a glamorous practice. The patients at this practice revered the senior doctor. And it's because he built that practice and he built those relationships. And so I set out to do that myself. So on my days off from my associateship with that other doctor, I set up shop here with my mom in San Mateo. See, my mom had a very unique type of practice. She had only 2 chairs in her practice, and for the entirety of her career, she only used 1. So that unused chair was like a fancy coat hanger. We would lay out the patient's jacket there, or put the purse there, or it was also where we would lay out the lead apron. And this was that one op where everything started for me. And everything in this op was made in 1985. So the first thing I did was I got new computers and software and digital x-rays. And then I invited my friends to be my first patients. And I did everything by myself with no assistant to start. And it's just like how we did in school. I knew how to do everything without an assistant. And it actually worked out just fine. See that floor there? That's carpet. So when you spills and messes, they actually don't need to be cleaned up. They just absorb into the floor and nobody knows about them. But with my vintage operatory equipment, I still managed to start to earn some cred with the community, and I started to float to the top of these search results for dentists in the area. Obviously, I was not the best dentist in town. I was still a new graduate. But all of my front desk staff, she was saying that her neck and her shoulder were starting to, she was complaining about a crick in her neck and her shoulder because she said the phone had never rang so much. Patients just kept coming in. And I think they just, again, not the best dentist, but I think that the patients just appreciated how much time I spent with them, and I spent a lot of time with them on education. And it was just like Dr. Bruce Pelletier taught us that the more time that the provider spends with the patient, the more satisfied the patient will be. And I had time. So I spent a lot of time with my patients, educating them, and the patients just kept coming in, and I would schedule anywhere from 30 to 15 new patients per month in that one chair. And my favorite appointment, both then and now, is a new patient exam. I really love surprising patients with information about their own mouth, actually. Because you'd be surprised, they have no idea, the reasons, they don't know what happened in their mouth. You'd think that they would because they had to sit through all the procedures, but they actually don't. They don't know what causes cavities, and they don't know what gum disease is, and they don't know all the ways that all their habits or their decisions contributed to what happens in their mouth. And so I like to, walk them through their x-rays and show them, and ask them, tell me about this. And they're like, I don't even know what that is and why. And so I like to explain that to them and surprise them with that information. Another thing that I like to do is I like to ask my patients about their goals. I'll say, what are your goals for your care here or your teeth in general? And the patients are always really caught off guard when I ask them this question. They're like, I'm just here for my cleaning. And I always, of course I reassure them and I say, yeah, of course, I'm gonna schedule with a hygienist, no problem, but what are your goals? And usually the patients will just say they want whiter teeth, that's what everybody wants. And maybe the more thoughtful ones will say that they don't want cavities. And then I'll throw it back to them and be like, well, how about teeth for life? Would that be a goal for you? And they're always kind of caught off guard again. I never even thought about that. It's like, well, maybe you should. And the truth is, everybody wants teeth for life, right? And so all of a sudden this just changes the conversation and the tone that appointment and all of the care moving forward, because all of a sudden the patient starts to realize and understand their role and responsibility in their oral health. And so, yeah, that's how I like to start all my appointments. So in 2012, and against the advice of even my own dental contractor, I splurged and I renovated the entire office, all 2 operatories. And so it was beautiful and I loved it. I got brand new ADAC equipment, and we had nice hardwood floors, so it felt much cleaner. And I still worked with my mom, and it was so much fun. We worked alongside each other, but with separate patients. And so I felt like I was on a high. It was perfect. And I could do whatever I wanted. I had all the freedom and flexibility to do whatever I wanted, and I got to, like, basically, if there was any fun experience to be had, I was there. My friends said, like, want to go have sushi in Japan? Let's go do it. I was in Colorado, like off in Hawaii, sail in Croatia. But despite all this, some things continued to really bother me. See, San Mateo was booming with startups, and it brought in this breed of, like, really cool patients in. And they were really smart and educated and motivated and seemingly health conscious. They would come in with, like, green smoothies, and they were, like, wearing, like, athleisure. And so you'd think that they care about their teeth, but they and they have everything, but they just have average mouths. And all too often, their FMX would look like this. So this girl told me that she was terrified of the dentist because every time she went to the dentist, she was told she had another cavity. And how could I tell her anything different than anything any other prior dentist told her? Because, honestly, she has so much more treatment to be done. And what was also hard was the fact that in my 2 chairs, I had kind of started to outgrow it, and I was scheduling several months out. So she needed all this work, and I was running out of chair time. So I started to feel super frustrated again. Like, how am I going to help her? So in my frustration, I decided to go back to volunteer work, and I signed up to do this dental mission trip in Peru. I took this suitcase with me one way to Peru with, like, anesthetics, disposables, and instruments, and we went to Urcos and Cusco, and we saw patients who basically had never seen a dentist in their entire lives, and they were all waiting in line every morning, and their children were all crying in pain because they couldn't eat. And so we did extractions and fillings out of lawn chairs, and there was no running water or electricity there, so we would, like, clean instruments like the way you clean camp plates, like bleach and water. And so, this work is super rewarding, and it really, like, fills my dental heart, but I realized that it wasn't even the dentistry that I did there that was the most impactful, it was the education. Because, yes, I could, take out that one tooth that's bothering you today, but what about the one that's gonna bother you tomorrow? And the truth is, I actually don't speak Spanish either, and I obviously don't speak the dialects that they speak in these towns. But with sign language, I felt like just educating people on, like, taking care of their teeth at home, I felt like that was the most important work that I did there. So I come back from Peru feeling fully restored by my work there, but then back to my patients like this. And this is my typical Silicon Valley patient, and she's here just for her cleaning, but obviously she needs so much more. Like, does she even realize that she's missing a crown? And not to mention, she has all of other stuff going on. And of course, yes, we can restore this. But, if she doesn't take care of her teeth, like, will any of the work that I do for her last? And moreover, my chair time is just, like, totally eaten up, and I was starting to have to schedule, like, 4 months out. It was ridiculous. So, and this is a problem with having too few chairs. Like, I don't think any of you will ever work in an office with only 2 operatories. It's very unusual. But I began to become, like, super frustrated by how reactive dentistry felt to me. I felt like I was treating problems after they already occurred. And then I also realized that there was just this vicious cycle of people being afraid of the dentist and then avoiding us, and then only letting things get worse in their mouth, which just makes them more afraid. And then so it just like perpetuates. And unfortunately, this is all too common. Like, we're very comfortable in this setting, but most people are not. So we always have to remember that every time a patient leans back in our chair, it's a very vulnerable feeling for them to have to lay back and to open their mouths. This is my sister, by the way. So, like, she's not scared of me at all. But even she was telling me she was afraid, and I was just replacing a tiny feeling for her that day. So we always have to keep that in mind. I began to grow, I just became super obsessed with why. Why was it that even, all of my patients, they were, in need of so much dental treatment, and they didn't seem to care about taking care of their teeth? Why was it that, even the most privileged patients, the ones who could afford anything they need to be able to take care of their teeth, they weren't doing it? They all needed SOPs and caries control. And why was it that over half of the cavities that I filled involved areas in between the teeth? And I became super obsessed with prevention and floss. Why is it that I couldn't get my patients to floss? No matter how much time I spent educating them on how to brush their teeth, how to floss, when to floss, where to floss, keep it here, put it on your bathroom counter, bring it with you. I would just come up with all types of strategies to remind them. But of course, 6 months later, they would come back and tell me, yeah, they didn't floss. They would just admit it. But, and you could tell in their mouths. And meanwhile, in San Francisco, my sister Kat, your typical non-flosser, she was an aspiring artist, but she also knew how hard it was for an artist to make money. So she decided to quit her job in finance and set out to set up a marketplace for original art. She wanted to help people like you and me have access to affordable original art and help artists find buyers for their art. So she called her company Enzo Art, and she thought she had some good traction. She got some press and met a lot of artists. And it felt like a really good idea. It was actually kind of like what minted.com is today, but obviously way too early. And in 9 months, she made one sale. It was this painting by Genevieve Davidson of my family's dogs. Sold to her one customer, my dad. So 9 months in, she was really discouraged. She was thinking okay, this is not gonna work out, and that's when I decided, all right, Kat, I need you to help me with my floss problem. And I was like, let's just match things up again. And maybe we can combine your idea with mine, and let's turn your art business into my floss business. So Kat, by the way, she didn't floss. So I had to really convince her. So we got started by collecting data. We started what we called the 21-day flossing challenge. It was just a Facebook event and we invited everyone we knew at the time to this Facebook event, and then we surveyed them before and after the event. So the event was an email. The event was an email. And then for 21 days, we emailed them with floss motivation, and it was very cheesy, and it was very ugly. But it actually worked. And we've turned people into flossers. And what we learned from this, from the surveying, honestly, was just that people don't prioritize flossing at all. And they don't understand why they have to do it. And mostly it's because they don't feel they don't see the difference with flossing. So we identified 3 issues with flossing. It's a communication issue, an efficacy issue, and a branding issue. Communication-wise, I was accustomed to educating my patients about periodontal disease with this. I would buy these pamphlets from the ADA website, and I would walk my patient through the stages of disease and circle the picture that looked just like that. And Catherine pointed out to me that this is a terrible education piece. What are you talking about? My dental brain told me that this is the clearest way to illustrate what was happening. There's no better way to describe this. I also have this model that I thought was brilliant because it has all the pathologies for teeth, and you can hold it in the palm of your hand and show it to the patient. And it's 3D. So I was like, this is perfect. You don't like that pamphlet? Well, how about this? This is perfect. And she's like, this is hideous. you can't show this to people, like you're gonna scare them. And, and again, I didn't get it because like this for me, like it's crystal clear, right? Like you guys all see this is crystal clear. But she was like, no. And then it was when I went to the gynecologist that I realized, I think Catherine's right. Like, I don't really want to look at that. So then Kat basically took that same information and she made this piece of art. And we've since refined this to make it more, like, a little clearer, but at the time, this felt like a breakthrough. Because, you know, maybe, like, this is something that people might actually be willing to look at. As for floss itself, we just noticed how ineffective it was. So floss is all thin, slippery, and flat. Most of it is made of Teflon. But how are we going to clean anything with this so thin, slippery, and flat? And usually, like, you're just going to make your gums clean. And so that's what a really common concern that patients have when you tell them to floss. They just say, oh, I'll just make my gums clean. And then you have to explain to them, like, well, it's not really the floss, it's your gum disease. But the truth is, like, when you're using a floss like that, you are going to make your gums clean. The third thing we identified was that it was a straight up branding problem. See, nobody had bothered to make flossing cool. And meanwhile, around this time, celebrities like Gwyneth Paltrow popularized oil pulling. Does anybody know what oil pulling is? Some of you guys, yeah, it's not very common, but at the time it was kind of trending. So it's like, you take a big spoonful of coconut oil, which is solid in the jar, and then you swish it in your mouth for 20 minutes. 20 minutes. It takes a long time and it's really hard to do. And my patients were willing to do this, but they weren't willing to floss. And I would use disposing solution on the same patients that were coconut oil pulling, and I would show them, like, you know, go ahead and coconut oil pull, but you're still gonna have to floss because look at all this plaque in your mouth. So anyways, through these, we identified these food problems and we banded together and decided, okay, we need to make flossing cool. So to get it to design Cocofloss, we approached it with a design thinking framework, which is a human-centered approach to thinking about problems. And again, we took these 3 problems with floss and made these our design challenges. So again, we have to fix the communication issues, the efficacy, and the branding. So communication-wise, we wanted to, change the way we're educating patients. Like, people need to understand why they need to take care of their teeth. They need to understand gum disease, and they don't want to look at those tooth models that we have. For efficacy, we wanted to create a very scrubby floss. So I, basically scoured the internet for like all types of materials. And like went to the fabric store. I just like went to any place that had any sort of string, and I evaluated what is this made of and what is good about it, and what did I want in my floss. And I wanted my floss to be really scrubby and strong and soft. And then we worked with we looked all over for factories that could make floss, and then we saw what kind of flosses they could make, and we picked the best ones, and then we iterated on those, and ultimately we ended up with our floss, which is Cocofloss. We also realized that, the branding-wise, maybe the product needs to speak to you. Like, maybe your floss could remind you that you need to be using it, and maybe it could remind you that it's something that you actually like or want to do. And why was it that we were all willing to buy this expensive candle and put it out in our bathroom and not even light it? And it's because the candle is beautiful. So why can't floss be beautiful? So we perfected our floss. We put coconut oil in it, and we made it smell great. And it's made with 500 filaments, so it's really scrubby. And then we sent it out to all of our friends and family. And we didn't even settle on a container at the time, so we just put it in these little jars. So I literally just sent it out to everyone I knew. And then we started hitting the phones, and I started cold calling. And I got hung up on more times than I'd like to remember. And we will never forget this one practice in San Francisco. Everything about their website told us that they were the perfect office to try our floss because it was like a practice centered around like women in dentistry. But their front desk was like, they were like bulldogs. They wouldn't let us in. But then I ended up sending the floss directly to their dental hygiene team. And then all of a sudden, their little bulldogs were calling us and saying, how can we get more of that? And we just continue to like refine and hone our like visual merchandising, our branding, our packaging, and our education materials. And this little project that was kind of like my night and weekend project started again. I started in my apartment, and quickly outgrew my apartment. We took over my family's dining room and our family's family room and our garage. And then finally, we built our first office. This was in downtown San Mateo. It was a 5-minute walk from my dental practice with the post office right in between. So I would go to the Cocofloss office on my lunch break, or I would sometimes do half days and split my day between Cocofloss and the dental office, and I would shuttle packages of floss on the way. And then we started taking Cocofloss to dental meetings. So we started with the dental hygiene community, and then brought us to the dental society, and also the alumni meeting. Are you guys all going to the alumni meeting? Yeah? Okay, I'll be there too. This is a great meeting, thank you, Joanne. And then of course, CDA. We, obviously for many years, we could never afford to have our own booth, and so I would be that person that just accosts you and gives you a sample, and really annoying people. And Dr. Hayashida would always give us a place to sit down at the European booth, and we'd give out European lip balm and hugs and Cocofloss. And finally, when we were ready to take Cocofloss on the road nationally, we grew accustomed to traveling with this 10-foot banner. And let me tell you, it is not easy traveling with a 10-foot banner, because every other cab or Uber driver you call would, drive up to pick you up, and they'd look at that thing and drive away. So you need special accommodations for this thing. And for all of our meetings up until just a few years ago, we would make every booth ourselves from hand. This was a Cocofloss sign that we were about to put up, and we realized you couldn't even see the sign, so we had to run and get spray paint real fast and spray paint all the letters to make them legible. And this is like a booth like that. And what we would show at these meetings with that iPad there was this really graphic video. It has the appeal of a Dr. Pimple Popper video. Have you guys heard of her? It's so gross, but so rewarding. So we show regular floss on the left and how it's it really doesn't do anything. And then on the right we show Cocofloss and how it just removes plaque so well. And in that video, it actually took off tartar too, which was so gross and unexpected. And then, do you guys know what this is? Goop? Well, so Goop is Gwyneth Paltrow's blog, and this was a big turning point for us because all of a sudden people knew who we were because of Gwyneth Paltrow. She put us up on her blog, because remember, she was a coconut oil fanatic. And we did, we tried to send it to her, and we never thought we would get through. But her assistant eventually got in touch with us, but we never knew if it got to her. But we just kept sending it just in case, and eventually it did. And so she wrote about us on her blog, which is really exciting for us, and people started to pay attention. And then press started to, think about floss differently. So all of a sudden, floss turned into a luxury. Doesn't that tickle your ears? Luxury floss? It still tickles my ears. And slowly but surely, one flosser at a time, we're changing the culture around flossing. So maybe flossing is cool. It is? Yeah, is it cool? Is flossing cool? I don't know. We should all think flossing is cool, right? So I'm still working in my dental office, right? So both businesses are humming at this point. I'm in my 1 to 2 chair office. Sometimes my mom would take some days off, and so I would work out of 2 chairs. I would have sometimes I would have 2 hygienists working in those 2 chairs, and then I would just be in the back working in this supply closet that we call the office, and I would just come out and do the exams. And then on my days doing Cocofloss, I'd be bouncing around the country doing dental meetings. Here I was teaching this model how to floss before we took pictures of her. And Cocofloss has always been, and the dental practice, of course, has always been a family affair. My dad is up there on the left, and he was helping us get some packages out late at night. And on the right is my husband and my mother-in-law, my aunt, my grandma, and my parents all working on a Sunday, my mom's birthday, to help get some packages out because we had this big order that we didn't expect. Around this time, I also rebranded my dental practice to Young Dental Group because I wanted my practice name to encompass all the providers of the practice, and it wasn't just me. It was mostly my hygienists who were, running everything because my hygiene practice has grown so much, and so they were filling the chairs. And we literally outgrew it, and it was only like a couple of years after we built it. They were right to tell me that I shouldn't remodel to operatory practice. And so for years I started looking for a new office, and it was really hard actually. So San Mateo is, I don't know if you guys have been there, but they don't allow dental practices or medical practices on the first floor at all. You have to be upstairs. But if you're going to build upstairs, then you have to build an elevator that's up to today's ADA code. So building a dental practice is already very expensive, but to build an elevator for a building that you don't own it seems like totally unreasonable. So I looked for years for a new dental practice, and it was, I don't know, it wasn't working out. So we just made it work here with our 2 operatories, and we got creative about scheduling, about staggering providers and hours. And then I got an unexpected phone call from the building manager. So remember, we've been in this building since 1985, but the building manager said that the landlord had new plans for the building and they wanted to remodel it to look like this. And they were going to kick everyone out in less than a year and find a new tenant once they built it, and it wasn't going to be any of us, so we all had to go. So that was like a really, really big shock. Like we were essentially losing our home for so long. So again, I didn't really have a place to hang out in this office, so I would sit here. This was the handicap branch of our building with a view of a pizza parlor. And this is where I would just meditate and wonder what I was going to do, because I had built this patient base that I loved so much. I felt like my patients were like family to me already. And my mom likewise had done that for her practice. And we didn't know where we were going to go. I thought, like, am I going to have to rent chairs from another doctor? Like, what is our practice going to look like? Where are our hygienists going to go? Or are we going to have to move to another town? And just when I began to concede that, all right, maybe this just wasn't meant to be. Maybe I'm just supposed to sell my charts and just move on, and maybe I'm just supposed to do Cocofloss alone, just Cocofloss. Maybe mom's supposed to retire. My mom, very fortunately, ran into an old friend. She was having lunch in San Mateo and ran into an old friend who was also a dentist in San Mateo. And she mentioned to her that we were in this situation, and she said to my mom, oh, well, maybe I should slow down. So the friend, this dentist, said, you guys are looking for an office? Well, maybe I should slow down. If Crystal can wait for me, then maybe she can run my practice. And of course, there wasn't room to wait because we had to say goodbye to our old office, whether or not we were ready to. But I got to work really quickly on my mom's friend, and I ended up buying her practice and hiring her team, and I quickly made plans to renovate her office. So I turned her 4-operatory practice into 5 ops. And her practice was just 1 block away in a building that had an ADA compliant elevator, thankfully. And this is the new office. So, yeah, I can't, there was just so much hard work put into this. And even our contractor said that he worked in record time to get it to build it. Like he said, it was the fastest office he's ever built. But there was still a few weeks where we didn't have an office at all. So that was very scary for me and our staff. But we did it, and it has a view of San Mateo and a view of the old office. So we really love that part of it. In the new office, we have our hygiene team has 2 chairs, and the doctors have 3 chairs. And I learned how to work out of 3 ops. I never really could do that, and it's actually so much fun. And just shortly after I built this, I realized we could have built a bigger office, but really happy with it. Okay. Okay, so today, Cocofloss has won some really cool awards that I think does mean that flossing has become cool. We won the Award Best of Beauty Award for the first time, and award never gave an award to floss before. So that was a first. We also won the Best of Class Hygiene Award for 2 years in a row, and I guess the GQ Grooming Awards. And our dental professionals are our biggest cheerleaders and ambassadors. And they love our products because they actually work. And I think it says something about these doctors that they want their patients to have the best. And so they love displaying it in their practices and giving it out and using it in practice. So the Cocofloss team today is a team of about 30. And we are in San Mateo and also distributed across the country. And I really love working with these people. They're so creative and talented and driven. And there's just so much fun. And it's really humbling to me that they're all working on this crazy idea I had. But it's also wonderful that we're all aligned on the same mission. And we're just continuing to reimagine oral care and seeing how we can change the way people feel about oral care and making products that people will just adore. We approached Cocofloss a similar way. I don't think you guys have tried our toothbrush yet. But I realized that, the way we were taught how to brush our teeth in dental school, you want to be able to brush along the gum line because you want to make a 45-degree angle with the bristles towards the gum line. But most toothbrushes aren't designed that way. So we designed Cocofloss to brush not just your teeth, but your gum line too, with these tapered bristles, tall tapered bristles and short rounded bristles. And we had this tested at a university, and we found that it is 16 times more effective at cleaning in between your teeth than a standard cut toothbrush. So we knew it would be good, but we didn't know it was effective. And of course, as a dentist, I'm very aware of all the plastic waste that we generate, all our barriers and disposables and chair covers and masks. And so, aware of that, Cocofloss is made with recycled water bottles, and our Cocofloss handles are made from recycled ocean-bound plastic. And for every Cocofloss we sell, we collect an additional 10 Cocoflosses worth of ocean-bound plastic. Did I say that too fast? For every Cocofloss we sell, we collect an additional 10 Cocoflosses worth of ocean-bound plastic. All right, so people always want to know, how do you find balance in your crazy world of dentistry and Cocofloss? Truth is, it's all just a mashup. This is just, when you're doing what you love, it all just works. And, it's not for everyone, but it's really fun. I'm having fun every day, and I love it. And I wouldn't change anything. And of course, it's still a family affair. My husband Daryl has learned how to fix dental equipment, and he's even come with me and trained to the Philippines to help educate. And our daughter Isla is too, and she's also grown accustomed to traveling with a 10-foot banner. She's also an official Cocofloss product tester. She uses Cocobrush and Cocofloss. She also wears Invisalign. And our son Bryce, he's just a few months old, and he went on his very first road trip so that we could all be here with you guys today. And then, of course, my sister, she's the CEO of Cocofloss, and I just have so much fun working with her every day. So, yeah, like no day really feels like work as like traditional type of work, because every day is so much fun. Okay, so how many of you guys have seen a patient like this? It should be like everyone except dental hygiene, right? Does dental hygiene see patients like this? Probably not. Okay, so is this still restorable? Yeah, it is. How come we're not sure here? Yes, this is still restorable. But do we all agree that this patient would be better with some teeth in their mouth? Yeah. Okay, so my question for you is, what do you think this patient's mouth looked like in their youth? Or in their 20s, or their 30s, or their 40s? Like, think about what this patient's mouth looked like back then. So what conversations could you have had with this patient at any of those stages in their life that could have helped prevent them from getting to this point? Like, how could you have helped shift things so that it never got to this point? So as dentists, we're really uniquely positioned to help people achieve not just oral health, but overall health. Because as you guys all know or will continue to learn, the mouth is the gateway to your entire body. Everything starts in the mouth. So, and you guys have all been, rightfully hyper-focused on the mouth these past few years. But I encourage you to try to see beyond just teeth and see beyond the mouth and make sure you're looking at your patient as a whole. And when you think, try to see your patient as a whole and try to think about what drives them. And when you can figure out what drives your patient, then you can really have a shot at having an impact on their lives, and you'll be delivering very individualized care, and you can really make a difference for people. And at Cocofloss, we will continue to help shift culture so that we can convince people that oral care is self-care. I don't know about all of you guys, but I know that some people will bother to do a six-step skincare routine or a 5-step hair care routine. But what about our mouth? So we're gonna try to make these products for you guys and make your jobs easier, so that you guys will have products that you can recommend and that will actually help your patients. So I'm just being the drum for Teeth for Life through my work in my dental practice, through all the products we create and all the experiences that we share with people, and through new products that I'm making. Our goal is just to make people healthier with oral care products that they can't live without. And we'd love to be the #1 recommended brand for top dentists. Are you guys all still here? Okay, so if you're not, if you don't remember anything I've said, there are just 3 takeaways. The first is that you are the artist. You get to design your career, in your dental career, however you want it. And design it so that every day feels like fun. And you get to decide what balance means to you. And it might not make sense to anyone else. And it doesn't matter what other people have to say about it. And don't judge yourself for it, just do it. So create your brand around things that matter to you. The second is to build community. I know I named this talk after that popular NPR podcast, How I Built This, but obviously I didn't build this by myself. So nurture relationships with your classmates who become your colleagues, your patients who will become your friends, and of course your friends and family. I definitely encourage you guys all to keep in touch and deepen your relationships if beyond graduation. And lastly is to enjoy the journey. That's really easy to do when you've got the first two. And spend extra time on the hard things because they will get easier and they'll become more fun. And make the most out of every situation. Like celebrate the mashups. As you see, like my life was just a bunch of mashups. And celebrate the small incremental steps because if you keep your eye on the horizon, every small incremental step will get you to where you want to go. Of course, I cannot leave this podium without a nod to Dr. Dugoni. I think you all know he passed away when you guys were probably first years or so. And I had the privilege of having him as our dean when I was in school. And he would say this to us all the time. Specifically build people, and along the way they become doctors and hygienists. So as you guys can see, my path to this point hasn't been a straight one, and every little challenge and triumph has made me the person and doctor that I am today. So I hope I've inspired you to go out and chase after whatever it is that energizes you and gives you